Shabbat shalom, everyone. Shabbat shalom. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. Hope everyone's been blessed over the last few weeks, doing well. And we're back, everyone. We're back to get into some more information, to bring out some more history. And as you all can tell by the title, Legends of Jews Below the Sahara is what we will be indulging into today. Again, Shabbat shalom. And I hope everyone is doing well. Shalom to everyone that'll be tuning in now and everyone that'll be tuning in later. Shalom, my brother Isaiah. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, brother. Thank you for tuning in. Brother Moray. Thank you for tuning in. Again, today's topic is Legends of the Jews Below the Sahara. All right, that's what we're going to get into. And we're going to go ahead and get straight into the information today. Go ahead and get straight into the presentation today. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Make sure we all set up and good, and then we'll get to presenting. All right. Let me hide that. We're going to go to full screen. And we're going to bring out some important information today. So I hope I sound good and everything for you all. But again, the title of the presentation today is Legends of the Jews Below the Sahara. So let's get into it. To get into the information today, we'll start off by looking at this book right here, Panorama Geography, specifically book 7 or edition 7. And we're going to go to this to figure out what exactly is the Sahara before we indulge into the information. So the Sahara Desert is the largest desert in the world. It covers almost the whole of northern Africa. It extends from the Atlantic Ocean in the west, so it extends from West Africa to the Red Sea in the east. In the north, it is bound by the Mediterranean Sea and the Atlas Mountains. And in the south, it merges into the savanna grassland. So this is a territory that encompasses North, East, and West Africa. And again, we'll be talking about Jews in the Sahara and below. So Jews in the northwestern African region and Jews below the Sahara. And of course, this image is coming from the book we just reviewed. So starting off, we'll be looking in Hebrewisms of West Africa. And throughout this presentation, we'll be looking through various books, getting some information from all of them. All right. So starting at the highlighted portion, it states that at Tugart, in an isolated district, lived the Megaria, Jews who of old became perverts to escape death, but who do not mingle with the Muslims or the Musulmans and marry among themselves. Their women converse among themselves in Hebrew when they desire not to be understood. Numerous also at Wargla or Wargla. It goes on to say the Jews multiply at Tugoso in the Suasa, at Ogomin in Oid in Mauritania Adrar, they finance as old the Berber caravans to Timbuktu. So a lot of these territories that we just read about specifically is in the Northwest African territories, like Tugars and like Oid and even Mauritania. And if you've been following my channel over the last couple videos, you would understand and be familiar with the Jews of Oid as well as the Jews of Adrar, Mauritania. But what's interesting is they said that they financed the Berber caravans to Timbuktu, which is really interesting. So at Olata or Walata, they were jewelers and goldsmiths. They are still in Tefet as they were from a remote period. Swarming among the Mauritanian tribes, they are blacksmiths, armorers, saddlers, and jewelers, forming a special caste, the Malim or the Mualim. As we reviewed before, we know that these people specifically that they're talking about here connects with the Suniki Bafour people. The legends of the Tangut make of them descendants of Jewish prisoners of wars, especially distributed by the prophet among his tribes to ply their trades. All right, so again, we have legends of Jews in these areas, specifically Algeria as the territories read off, and even Mauritania to the further left. And even we have a tradition of the Islamic prophets or leaders dispersing some of these Jews amongst their specific tribes. It goes on to say that the Jews of El Barik tell us at Silgermassa made a profession of masonry, now by the side of the immense blocks which mark Medinet El Hamara, the site of the ancient capital of Tiflet, a mass of footings of the solid walls of brick, a well-devised plan from floor to arch, testified to the ability of the masons. And again, we know that these stonemasons connect to those peoples known as the Balfours. Pulpits, no doubt, of the Romans. At Tuat, they pay like honor to the irrigation works, the masonry of which still exists. And we know that this type of stone masonry now also made its way down into Timbuktu and Ghana, as well as in Tuat, which is in the Algeria Oasis region. Continuing. So we spoke about places in Algeria, we spoke about places in Mauritania. That's very interesting because we have a character or a person known in history as Saint Jerome, a Christian he was at the time, and he brings out some very important or interesting information. In the book The Jews of North Africa, page 4, it states that according to Saint Jerome, under the Pax Romana, the Jewish communities underwent a great period or a period of great prosperity all the way from India to the western tip of Africa. But we can go a little deeper and see what specifically or what area in on the western tip of Africa he was making reference to. And to do that, we're going to go to the Catholic Encyclopedia, all right, in the 15 volumes, volume 1. And right here at the highlighted, it says specifically, hence St. Jerome, writing to Dardanus, could say that the Jewish colonies formed in his time an unbroken chain across Africa from Mauritania to India. All right, so he knew of these Jews during his time being all the way in Mauritania, and even other communities stretching all the way out as far as India. Now, in between the highlighted, it goes on to mention off different or other migrations of Jews into Africa, like 70 AD, like the invasion of Jews from the Muslims in Mecca in 630 AD, and even going into Abyssinia. But it goes on to say that others took the well-known route to Egypt and following the Mediterranean coast set out to join or to rejoin their co-religionists in the territories of Tripoli and Tunisia. We know those are North Africa or Northwest Africa. Some by pursuing the caravan route of Darfur across the Wadi, Bornu, and Sokoto, arrived about the middle of the 11th century at the valley of the Niger. All right, so again, there is legends of Jews going into West Africa from these different locations of Egypt and even the Mediterranean coast. And of course, we know, according to St. Jerome, as he said, these Jews were in Mauritania and stretched to India. And specifically dealing with those areas that they went to along the Niger right here, like Wadi, Bornu, and Sokoto, we see it right here in these areas. So they would have went deep into West Africa, according to the legends. And Shabbat Shalom, brothers. Shabbat Shalom to those in the chat. So now that we've reviewed those specific legends of Jews in the northern West African territories, we're going to go a little deeper below the Sahara. And to do that, we're going to go to Negro Land Revisited. So it says, besides the Mauritanian legend, there are many references to Jewish ancestry in the oral traditions recorded in the Western Sahel. So when people say things like there were no Jews in West Africa, even people say things like there were no Jews in Africa until the Sephardic Jews, which is like the 15th, 14th century. We have to keep in mind that these people actually have Jewish ancestries throughout their oral traditions. All right. And that comes way before Sephardic Jews. Continuing, the inhabitants of Gombu, for instance, who strongly associate themselves with the legendary Ouagadougou or Ghana, claim that their ancestors came from the land of Canaan and were Banu Israel, that is, Hebrews. After the death of Joseph, they left Egypt and moved to the Western Sahel, where they established a large empire ruled by the three sons of their leaders, Charasan, that's either Charasan, Charahassani, or Harasani. All right, we obviously see that this is cut off, but I'm gonna just speculate that it's Charahassani, Ibinu, Horonu, called or Kor, Wargara, and Songhai. Now, these two specific names right here, the first two, of course, they sound a little weird, but they connect to the Saniki Mandi peoples. All right, these are Saniki Mandi tribes right here that this legend is being associated. And of course, we all know of the Songhai people. All right, we all know of the Songhai people. So it goes on to say that these three brothers are the ancestors of the three important peoples of the Western Sudan: the Suniki, like I stated, the Malinki or the Mandi, as well as the Songhai. It goes on to say this tradition was, however, recorded in the late 1930s, and we cannot exclude the possibility of a transfer from the earlier French historiography of Western Africa. An almost identical tradition is described by Delafosse. Moreover, Kabbalistic literature of Christian, Jewish, or of Muslim province, especially books of magic, circulated widely in the pre-colonial Western Sudan. Let's see. Where should we go? Let's continue reading. It says references in Sudanese or traditions to Hebraic ancestry certainly demonstrate a link with the Mediterranean world, but a link not through migration in the unrecorded past, but through the movement of books and scholars since the coming of Islam. So this is also another way certain tribes got this knowledge of these peoples in these locations. The influence of the authorized French historiography clearly appears in the interpretation of Ouagadougou legend offered by Malian scholar Yaba Baifli in 1996. According to him, Ouagadougou, or Ghana, was established by conquerors who came from the east and who brought with them many elements of Jewish culture. The forefathers of the Suniki had originally lived in Sennar in Nubia, and this place gave its name to them. It goes on to say that Yuba faithfully refers to a Saniki legend according to which some of the Jews did not follow Moses across the Red Sea, but went to the south. Afterwards, the Saniki of Sennar were led to the Western Sahel by their patriarch Dinga, whose character has been modeled in the traditions after their Hebraic patriarch Jacob, father of the 12 tribes of Israel. Now we see that this specific author or historian, Yuba, he believes that they descend from Israelites that did not cross the Red Sea during the time of Moses. I defer from that personally. I say they came in around or a little later. I do believe that they are Israelites, but I would say that they came in a little later and that they were in Aswan around the time of the Jews or in the same location of the Jews, and they would have made their way west across the Sahel into Ouagadougou or Ghana. And again, Ouagadougou or Ghana took up territories like southern Mauritania, Senegal, and Mali. But it goes on to say something interesting right here. Similarly, the Arabic name Ghana is derived from the name Canaan for Ghana. In the Western Sudan was the promised land to Dinga and his descendants in the same sense as the land of Canaan was promised by God to Abraham and his pedigree. But the thing is, we know that the name Ghana came from the Berbers from the north. All right, so Ghana wasn't originally called it by the inhabitants, specifically the Seneca. They referred to it as Ouagadougou, but the Berbers named it Ghana. But it goes on to say the idea of early Jewish presence in sub-Saharan Africa is actually very old in European literature. All right, so it's very old. It was properly introduced in 1563 when the first Latin translations of the controversial account of Eldad the Danite appeared in Paris. The author of this account was a wandering Jew who called himself Eldad Hadani and turned up in Qumran in 883 AD. Now, if we was to continue to read down through this, it'll basically they're trying to discredit his story. So we're not going to read over that, but if you aren't familiar with the work I've done on Eldad the Danite and showing his connections to West African Jews, And just breaking down that whole history and showing how they actually manipulated and changed his story around. I recommend you going and check out those specific videos on Eldad and that history. Continuing, I'll read from the top on this one. But first, let me take a break and look at the chat, see what's going on. Thank you, Black Dream Hope 3. I appreciate you for tuning in. Thank you, thank you. Shalom, shalom. Shabbat shalom, brother Don. Thank you for tuning in. All right. Them information is so important. There are no Black Hebrew communities in French. While there is a lot of Sinhalese, Malayan peoples from Cameroon, Ivory Coast too. Yeah. I actually got the history of Eldad translated from French. So, like I said, if you wanted to go check that out, you can. After I get done with this. But it says Eldad the Danite story became popular, especially after Eliakim Carmely, a well-known and prolific editor of Hebrew texts, published a French translation in 1834, which made the text available to non-Hebraic readers. Jewish scholars had been arguing about Eldad for centuries, although they were much less interested in his African adventures than the law of legal practices of his alleged background. Nevertheless, there was for a long time no reason to suspect Eldad's claims that there was once a Jewish kingdom somewhere in the African interior. As we have already discussed above, his claim was supported, all right? His claim was supported by various nearly contemporary Arabic sources. Also, there were several European sources from the existence, excuse me, yes, that's what it says. Also, there were several European sources for the existence of Jews or Judaized blacks in West Africa. As discussed above, Louis del Marmol Kajarva claimed that some West African blacks had been Jews before their conversions to Islam, and we know that's actually true. We know that a lot of the times when the Mohammedans or these Islamicized Berbers were showing up in the Sahara, the trade routes were already controlled and set up by the Jews. It goes on to say that Willem Bosman, the Dutch commander of Elmina, reported that some blacks of the Guinea coast were monotheistic. He also referred to the current claims that their culture might contain Judaic elements, although Bosman himself was doubtful about this. In 1868, James Africanus Horton referred to the current discussion about the cultural influence of Judaism on the Black Africans. Some Protestant missionaries believed that they had discovered striking similarities between Judaism and the religion of the Igbo, whose language was said to be full of Hebraisms. The constructions of the sentences, the verbal significance, the model of comparisons are all typical of Hebrew. According to Horton, elements of Judaism and the Hebrew language were carried into southern Nigeria by Jewish refugees who arrived from the north. And if you're familiar with my channel, we've read this specific source multiple times dealing with the Igbos and even the Efiks and other peoples in the Great Niger River and Calabar region, talking about how the 10 tribes would have made their way into this location is spread out into the Great Niger and Old Calabar River regions. All right. So we're not going to read that, but we're going to go to the last paragraph where it states was later strengthened, scaled Semitic invasion into Egypt during the Hyksos invasion. The Semitic invaders, including Israelites, continued their migration from the Nile Valley further to Ethiopia and northern Africa. When Delafosse was writing his Hot Synagogue Niger, signs of early Jewish and Semitic influence were found everywhere in Africa. Zimbabwe, for instance, was believed to have been built by Phoenicians who were trading in southern Africa. According to some scholars, the fabulous Ophir, whence the ships of King Solomon brought much gold, had been in Masana land. This hypothesis was popularized by Henry Reeder, famous novel King Solomon Mines, which was first published in 1885. If the Zulus could have Semitic blood in the veins, then it was by no means unbelievable that the founders of ancient Ghana in the Western Sudan which was much closer to the Mediterranean than Zululand, might also have been Semitic immigrants. And it finishes off right here by stating that the hypothesis of Judeo-Syrian origins of Ghana was accepted as valid in historiography of Western Africa well in the 1960s, although it was occasionally questioned. In 1954, Raymond Muni, for instance, concluded that at present, nothing certain is known of the origins of Ghana, but it was regarded by the earliest authors as a black kingdom of the Saniki or Sanrakol race. All right. And here, right here, is one of the last kings, one of the said last Jewish kings of Ghana, right here, Tominkana or Tinkamin. All right. Excuse me for butchering these names. I do not speak these specific languages. Some of y'all be coming under the videos once I'm done, telling me I'm pronouncing these names wrong. And I'm like, yeah, I know I'm not fluent in these languages. I speak English. So forgive me. But let's continue. All right, so we just read over Negro Land. Negro Land Revisited. Now we're about to go to a Journal of Residence in Ashanti by Joseph Dupas. All right. And one quotation that stuck out to me on the page that we're going to be reading from is this. But what is more material, these Sudanic Jews are reported to have been the original inhabitants thereabout before the Arabs were acquainted with Central Africa. Let's get into it. So the Jews of Sudan are, according to my informers, divided into many large and small tribes, with whose names they are unacquainted. That's deep. Let me read that again. The Jews of the Sudan are, according to many informers, divided into many large and small tribes, with whose names they are unacquainted. But the towns are filled with traitors and artificers of that faith who gain a substance at their several employments in the service of the Muslims under whose government they live as vassals. This in reference to Mr. Bolwich, Kingdom of Yehudi, I may be permitted to say it is only state of society in which the oppressed nation is suffered to live, and the tribes without security in their possessions, without public revenue or arms, are hourly exposed to insults and rapine from the blind zeal of actively bigotry by which their lords are emulated in those countries. The land occupied by these people cover a wide extent between Messina and Kaby. If you don't know what Messina is, it's in the Timbuktu area right here, for example. They are said to be mingled also with the upper Fula tribes eastward of Timbuktu, and in many parts of Moro, they have inheritance. They have inheritance or are employed as artificers in the cities and towns. And of course, we know that the Fulaha tribes are in reference to the Fulani. So we're going to skip down to the second highlighted. It says, but what is more material, these Sudanic Jews are reported to have been the original inhabitants thereabout before the Arabs were acquainted with Central Africa. They are perhaps distinguished from the Hebrews, the prosperity of Abraham, in that so much as I never heard them described under the appellation of Bani Israel. Although the name must have been familiar to the Muslims from the pages of the Quran, and I found in antecedent conversations upon the subject of Egypt, they were well informed of these events, which befell the children of Israel in the days of Moses. So even these Sudanic Jews understood the events of the Torah and even the events that happened during the days of Moses. The estimates in which the Muslims of Wargala hold the glorious reign of Solomon, king of Israel, is equal to that of their northern brother. Again, so some key points to take from this specific source: the Jews of the Sudan the Jews of the Sudan are, according to my informers, divided into many large and small tribes with whose names they are unacquainted. And also this, but what is more material, these Sudanic Jews are reported to have been the original inhabitants thereabout before the Arabs were acquainted with Central Africa. And we're going to finish off by reading some pages from the Black Jews of Africa. Of course, this is by Edith Brewer. So it goes on to say that There is evidence for the presence of Jews from ancient times in the Djurb, in Tereza or Tozura, Nufwasa, and Matamatan, Tripolitan, Gadames accommodated an ancient Jewish community whose existence is referred to in rabbinical texts. And again, forgive me for butchering these names, but I know for sure these are territories in northwestern Africa, in the Sahara. It says in the Jebel Nufasa, vestiges of Jewish quarters were discovered in the city of Saras, which was crossed by the Tripoli Sudan caravan trail. According to al-Bakar, in the 11th century, in the Dijadu, the starting point of the trail to Khanum via the Ephesian, there lived a large population of Jews. So we started up in Northwest Africa and we're starting to move down further into the Sahara and even below the Sahara. Another piece of information is provided by Benjamin of Tudela, who left us a few lines dating from around 1173 AD about their caravan journeys to Black Africa. It is a 12-day journey from Aswan to Hulan, where there are some 300 Jews. From there, they travel for 50 days by caravan through the great desert called Sahara to the city of Zavila called Havila in the scriptures into the land of Ghana. All right, so according to Benjamin of Tudela, you had Jews crossing East Africa, places like Aswan and Hulan, crossing the Sahara, going into places like Ghana, which is in West Africa. And this is confirmed in the next sentence by it stating that this land is located on the western side of Kush, which is called Al Habasha. All right. And we know the Habasha or the Al Habasha people is dealing with East Africa. So it'll be west of them. Now it gets interesting because it says that all this plausibility suggests an uninterrupted chain of Jewish colonies up to the border of the Sahara, scattered from the Atlantic Ocean to the Libyan desert, whose economic life and longevity depended at least in part on the trans-Sahara trade. One can suppose that the Jews of the Sahara, caravans who traveled down towards Senegal and the Niger, were certain to meet communities of co-religionists, which enabled them to endure the insecurity of their travels and separation from their tradition. So again, I'm gonna read this last sentence because it's really important. So one can suppose that Jews of the Sahara, caravans who traveled down towards Senegal and Niger, were certain to meet communities of co-religionists. So when Jews were coming from the north and traveling to places like Senegal and along the Niger, they met communities of co-religionists, meaning they met communities of already established Jews. All right, so we're talking about thousands of years we've had Jews in West Africa in the Sahara. All right. So this is not a myth. When we're talking about Jews in the Sahara, and Sephardic Jews definitely weren't the first Jews in West Africa. When the Jewish cartographer school of the Balearic Island flourished, it seems that the Jews knew the Sahara and Sudan quite well and had traveled throughout their territories. This is confirmed by the testimony of Arab travelers. All right. Jews knew the Sahara and Sudan quite well and had traveled throughout their territory. This is confirmed by the testimony of Arab travelers. The involvement of Jews in the trans-Saharan trade appears undeniable, even if not possible to access whether small groups of isolated individuals could have founded a line of descent in the Sahara or the Sudan. And that's also important and stuck out to me because in a lot of West African or traditions and legends, they talk about a founding father or founding fathers. Like, for example, if we look at the Saniki, we know they speak of Dinga and how he was supposedly an Israelite. And we look fast forward thousands of years later, we see millions of people that would have sprung from that specific line of person that would have sprung from Dinga, be their legend is true. And even with the Igbos, for example, they are said to descend from a man or three men named Irili, Orodi, and Iri, or Ireli, Orodi, and Iri. And we look fast forward thousands of years, we see millions of Igbo descendants today. So again, small groups of isolated individuals could have founded a line of descendant in the Sahara or the Sudan. All right. Their banishment from the region of Songhai at the end of the 15th century, mentioned by Leo Africanus, seems to provide confirmation of their presence in the Sudan, in a territory that would have now included the southern part of Mauritania, the Niger Basin, and east of Senegal. So it goes on to say that conclusions about earlier periods are highly speculative. One might hypothesize that part of the Judeo-Berber population were Judaized before the arrival of Arab Muslims in the 7th century, and that these groups did not all adhere to Islam, which we know is true. One might also consider that Jewish groups having imprecise contours had a long-standing presence in Ghana and Mali until their destruction by the Almoravids in the 11th century. We just brought out all the history, showing that these people in Ghana and Mali indeed did practice Judaism, indeed and did have Israelite oral traditions prior to the incoming of the Almoravid Empire and even the Sanhajas. Furthermore, if we take into account sources showing that Jewish traders and caravaneers did indeed cross or crisscross the Sahara, we can imagine how a kind of mythology of African Judaism might have been created. Furthermore, it is possible that centuries of Islamization would not necessarily obliterate some legacy of Judaism among the groups descended from these ancient Jews. In the case of some traces of Jewish culture might have survived in the subterranean memory of individuals or groups, as suggested in general by Freud. This mental process, which is similar to Feu's return to the repressed, by which repressed elements are never entirely destroyed and reappear in a distorted way, might be at works of reveal surviving elements linked to ancient and repressed Jewish traditions. Traces of Judaism were found in 1950s among the populations by Charles Martel, which asserts that the Moabites or Moabites possessed Jewish books translated into Arabic, which they use as a source of occult science. And to the right is a Moabite or Moabite, and we know that these people have connections to the Bambara of West Africa, which in turn connects to the Mandi people, and even the Fulani have these specific Moabite peoples amongst them or caste amongst them. It finishes up by saying Montel also collected a number of legends which, according to him, have a direct Hebrew origin. And he noted that the most notable and most humble fractions of the Sudanese people still assert that they are descendants of Jews. All right. Knowing the inclination of colonial agents to perceive Judaism in a like placeless, it is advisable to remain cautious about such assertions. And again, that wraps up this presentation, but I'm going to read this yellow sentence right here one more time because it's real key. Buntel also collected a number of legends, which according to him have a direct Hebrew origin. And he noted that the most notable and most humble fractions of the Sudanese people still assert that they are descendants of Jews. All right. So this is according to West African peoples. We know the Sudan during this time was referring to below the Sahara, which would take up territories like Senegal, Ghana, and Nigeria and things like that. So with that, that wraps up this video, Legends of Jews Below the Sahara. Again, we dealt with Jews in Northwest Africa, the Sahel, and even below the Niger. All right. Showing that this legend is true and that it is so, and that there is a history of Jews being in this region thousands of years before the coming of Sephardic Jews. And I wrap up this presentation, and I will now check the comment section, see what's going on. Stop sharing my screen. Hope you all enjoyed this presentation. Let me go up and catch up with what's going on. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you. Shabbat shalom, my brother. Shabbat shalom, my brother. Thank you for tuning in. Shalom, shalom. Shalom, shalom, my brother. So if there's any questions or comments, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll try my best to answer them to the best of my abilities. Anyone who would like to come up, critique, add, or comment on anything, link is in the chat. But again, any questions, comments, now's the time to put them in the chat. All right. So again, I'm catching up on the comments. Let's see. Okay. Definitely hit me up. I'm about to drop my email. I would like for you to reach out for me if you are serious about that. Email is in the chat. Email me, my brother. I would definitely appreciate that. Shalom, shalom. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. Hey, brother, happy Shabbat. I wonder if the Wolf are Hebrew Israelites because I know some here in Georgia, and I asked them about I asked them about being ancient Levites, and many said yes, they are. Yes, I do believe that the Wolf people do have connections to Israelites. I have to do specific independent research on them. I have information on them, but not enough to make a presentation. But yes, I do believe they do have connections to Israelites that made their way to West Africa, and even the Bani Israel community of Senegal and Ghana. I believe they do have connections to that as well. So just look forward in the future for a possible Wolf video. But I know most of them are E3A, so they would be Eurasians or Afro-Asiatics. Now, did the Israelites come from Zimbabwe and Namibia? The scholars are not true. The Israelites live there, South Africa. Yeah, click that link, my brother or sister. I've been waiting for you or one of you Bantu brothers and sisters to come on here talking that junk about Israel being in South Africa. Israelites were from South Africa. No scholar is truthful here. They went to slavery in Babylon in the Sudan. That's laughable. And later fled to West Africa rather than return south, but few. Yeah, brother, hit the link. Hit the link, man. Come show us some information. Come drop the knowledge on Israel being in South Africa. We would love that. Yes, in ancient times, the Sudan was, or yes, Sudanic does refer to Sudan. And just to show that I'm not capping or lying about the Sudan being West Africa, I'll show a quick map. The Sudan originally encompassed territories in West Africa. But let me pull up a quick map just for reference, since I didn't put one in the presentation. Share my screen real quick, then I'll get back to the comments. But Vine's Workless, definitely hit that chat. We would love for you to come up and show the history of Israel being in some Southern Africa and Babylon being in what did he say? Babylon being in the Sudan. Y'all, I'd love to see that. So feel free to click the link. But again, Sudan is a geographical region to the south of the Sahara, stretching from West Africa Central to Eastern Africa. I like to use this map a lot, showing the different regions of West Africa. The Sahara region, which would be more northern, the Sahel region, which would encompass the places that held the empire of Songhai, Ghana, and Mali, and the Sudan, which is below it, and then Guinea. So we know the Sudan would have been in West Africa during these specific times. How do I feel about people teaching Egypt is America? Egypt is not America. I believe they may be talking spiritually, but if they're talking physically, ancient Egypt is in America. The Israelites were captive in America. Joseph was sold to America. Nah. How do you feel about people saying that Islam was started by Africans but don't know they were converts? Yeah, that's true, and that's true. People do say that. Um, it would have been brought into Africa, North Africa. Those Berbers in North Africa, a lot of them was converted to Islam and formed their own specific Islamicized sects, like the Almoravids, like the Sanhaja. These were the people who eventually came and sacked the territories of Ghana and things like that, and converted a lot of the Jews in those areas. Click the link, brother. Click the link. Click the link. Israel is not in sub-Saharan Africa or South Africa. If you have information, please click the link and come show it. And again, if anyone has any final questions or comments, please, now's the chance to add them to the comment section. If not, I'll wrap this up and I will see you all once I get a chance to bring out some more information. The brother Don Venti states the Sephardic Jews in the Songhai Empire would have had their last names changed, so how would one backtrack their history? I don't believe that's true. I don't believe that's true. I believe they would have kept their names. And I say that based off a video I just did recently dealing with the Dagatun and how those specific Jews came in with surnames, and how even up until this day you still have Jewish groups in Mali with those same specific surnames that came from those Dagatun. So they know that they descend from these specific Jews that settled in the area of Mali in the 7th century AD. And those surnames is Tori, Daga, and Haidara. So Sephardic families did settle in Songhai, but I don't believe their names would have automatically changed to um Mendy related names or Saniki related names or surnames. If that answers your question, brother. And again, I'll give you all a few more minutes to put any final questions, thoughts, or comments in the comment section. If not, we're gonna wrap this up. And again, I will see you all next time I'm able to bring out information. Brother said, "Let's go to Africa. Snacks and gas on me, brother. You got a large tab for that. You're gonna have a large tab for that, paying for that fuel to get across that ocean." But before I get out of here, I'm gonna share this with you all. Me and a few brothers, getting ready to start another channel where we will be collabing, and all those things, bringing out different videos, bringing out different topics dealing with scripture, of course, history. All right, different. Let me see if I can bring it up real quick. Dealing with different topics in the scripture, and of course, different topics regarding Israelite history. So, those who would like to follow this channel, Zephaniah Alliance, please do so. I just shared the link in the chat. And I'm going to share my screen so you all can see what the channel looks like. We just put up a video earlier, an intro video, just let people know what we'll be talking about. As of now, we have 10 subscribers. A few brothers here that you all see in the chat will be on this channel, and I'll give them the opportunity to introduce themselves. All right. but we do have a lot of information coming out here soon. So make sure you go and subscribe to Zephaniah Alliance. And of course, check out our new short that we just put up. All right. Let's see if we have any comments going on. The brother says, under Askia Muhammad, he converted Jews around 1492. So I would assume he changed their names, at least some. So when it comes to that 1492 conversion, I don't know if those were Sephardic Jews, because Sephardic Jews were converted or were expelled in 1492 from Spain. So these could have been two different events going on that just related to Jews in these areas. But when it comes to them being converted to Islam, they probably would have changed their names later on. So yeah, all Israelites in the area would not have specific, I guess you could say, Israelite surnames, but some still do. Some still do, and they know their tribal names and things like that. So not everyone had their names changed, but a lot of people in those areas do carry Arabic, Muslim, and sometimes Hebraic names, especially amongst the people that were converted. The Mandi, the Saniki, Bambara, Fulani, who else? The Sari, Wolof, yeah, the Wolof as well. So yeah. Right. I'm aware of the Sephardic Jews coming into the synagogue, but like I said, I just believe that would have been a little after 1492. But again, if I'm wrong, I stand corrected. But again, I do know that the Sephardic Jews would have been getting expelled 1492 out of Spain. And they would have made their way to places like Senegal and Guinea the latter or the following years to come. That's documented. So yeah, that is true. They did go into Senegal. Jamaican from Zion, just subscribe, bro. I also have a channel. I have been speaking on the Edomites in Nigeria and their role in enslaving a lot of Israelites. Interesting. Who do you refer to being Edomites in Nigeria? Because not trying to call you out or anything, but a lot of people believe the Edo are Edomites, but they're not. They're Yoruba. So the Edo people of Nigeria, again, a lot of people believe that they're Edomites, but they are Yoruba. They're literally just a Yoruba branch or Yoruba tribe. And Edo isn't even their original name. They're known as the Ibini people or the Ubini people. And according to Yoruba Jewish scholars, they would be of the tribe of Benjamin. Because again, Edo isn't their original name. They're called the Benin people or the Ibini people. So if anyone needs me to show the Edo Yoruba link or connection, I will. But again, I know a lot of people believe that the Edo, the Edo of Nigeria are Edomites, but that's incorrect. They are Yoruba. They are definitely Yoruba. And maybe at a later date, I'll bring out or read some few pages from the Yoruba book by the brother that just released this book dealing with the Israelite heritage and connections to the Yoruba tribes. But I'll have to convert that to PDF form. That'll definitely take a while. The brother says, I realized something. You don't hear camps bringing this type of information out. That's because they hate Africa and they don't know the history. when you do hear camps talking about Israelites in Africa, the first words that come out of their mouth is 70 AD, um, Jews going into North Africa or going all the way from Israel to West Africa in 70 AD and using the Babylon and Timbuktu book. But no Jews made their way into West Africa in 70 AD. I do believe Jews from that specific event made their way to West Africa, but it wasn't in 70 AD. It was much, much later. Okay, let me check my email real quick, brother. See what you got for me. So the sister states that Edo was the name of a slave who saved someone important in Benin. And so they changed their name to Edo. That's beautiful. And I appreciate that information because I definitely did not know that. But like I say, I do know that their original name is not Edo. It is Ibini or Benin, the Beni people. Ubini, Ibini, Beni people. And they descend from the Yoruba, or they are Yoruba. So I'll definitely look into that, see if I can find some source material on what she just said, because like I say, that's a nice connection. I definitely did not know that. Uh-oh. Give me 1 second while I read over something. This is interesting. Mm. All right, let me see what's going on here. So brother goes on to say they love that book, but still teaching Arsarif is in America. Yeah, they definitely teach that. They definitely teach that. Funny thing is, you read Second Esdras, um, chapter 13, from verse 1 to the end of the specific chapter, you'll get an understanding of where the Israelites went, especially if you go from there to books like Chronicles and Kings. Those tribes definitely would have made their way back towards the land of Israel and further into Africa, from my understanding and from what I read and the source material contributing to that time period. Indeed, indeed. And dealing with, not even going to talk about it on here, but we will talk offline later on, brother. Done. You know about what, but when everybody has time, we need to talk, get some things, laid out for the channel. But putting these into books would be good. Definitely would be good. We have the Babylon and Timbuktu books and those type of things, but we need something that goes way, way deeper. Um, way, way deeper. Let me check my email again and see if I got what you're talking about. You probably sent it to my other email. 1 second. So it says the ancient Fon people are from Edo. I know them. They don't claim to be Yoruba. And also the Khan's Airways and Yoruba was sold by Edo people. Yeah, that's true. But Akans were sold by Akans. Airways were sold by Airways. And Yorubas were sold by Yorubas as well. Let me reread this. The ancient Fon people are from Edo. I know them. They don't claim to be Yoruba. Oh, okay, so I'm gonna just go over this real quick, just from Wikipedia. And if you disagree with this, maybe I'll do a video showing. Like I said, I'm not trying to go at you or nothing. I'm just trying to show you this information because a lot of people believe the Edo are Edomites because of the name, but that's not true. So you can just search Edo on Wikipedia, and we're gonna read this. The Edo or Benin people are a Edoid ethnic group found in the Edo state. So off top, we see that they got two names: the Edo or the Edoid people. Excuse me, the Edo or the Benin people. All right, so remember that. So the name Benin and Beni is a Portuguese corruption, ultimately from the word Ubini. All right, Ubini, which came into use during the reign of Oba ruler. Also, who is I ain't even gonna get into that yet. This, I'm not gonna get into these words yet, but once we start to read over some of these words, we would definitely understand that these people do or are Yoruba. But ultimately from the word Ubini, which came into use during the reign of Oba Owari the Great in the 1440. Ubini, a word meaning vexation, used by Prince Urani Minyan, son of the wealthy ruler of Uhi or Ifi. I keep saying Yoruba names, which is interesting, to describe the frustration he encountered after he was invited to rule Benin. Ubini was later corrupted to Bini by mixed ethnicities living together at the center and further corrupted to Bini around 1485. But before I go on, I just want to show this. Ife, we know that is a Yoruba word. And Oraniyama, I know I'm butchering this. Oran Miyan. It's also a Yoruba word. This is also a man in their legends, in their oral traditions as well. But let's go down here and let's get to the connections. Let's get to the connections. So this is where we get to the Yoruba connections with these people. This actually stuck out to me when I was reading this. It says in the traditional religion of the Edo, there exists besides the human world an invisible world of supernatural beings acting as interceders for the human world. Offerings are made to them in their respective shrines. Osano Bua is the creator and supreme God. Where does Osana Bua come from? What other tradition do we see this in? Yoruba. His son/daughter, Olukun, is a ruler of all bodies of water and is responsible for the prosperity and fertility. And again, Olukunu or Olukun is an Orisa spirit in the Yoruba religion. So is Ogun. All right. We know this is dealing with the Yoruba religion as well. And it even connects to Oduduwa and even Obatala. All right. So a lot of these people's traditions and cultures and even names connects to the Yoruba. That we even see that worship pantheon is basically the same as the Yorubas, as outlined here. Even here, um, their architecture and artwork is fairly the same, if not identical, to the Yorubas, right? So I just wanted to show that. I may show something else from a Yoruba brother because he made a connection in one of his videos of how the Edo or the Ubini, as he says it, Ubini people are Yoruba. But let me go back and check out this comment section, see what's going on. Let me catch back up. Sister says, yeah, I speak Edoid language. Okay, that's good. Did you get my link? Give me a second. Let me look. Did you send it to Son of Yah 4? Yep. Okay. Oh, you sent that an hour ago. Yeah, I got it. My cousin name is Emo Nina. Remember, Emo Yo. Oh, ooh, ooh. That's fire. That's a nice little connection. I wish I had the boom on here. I do. That's a nice connection. I never realized that. So again, she says, my cousin name is Emo Nina. Remember the Emo Yo Kwam. Yep, I do remember the Emo Yo Kwam. Emo does mean children, but Jamaican from Zion says also Ezekiel 34 covers this about the Edo did to Jacob. Again, Edo is not their name, brother. Edo is not their name. What the Edo did to Jacob's children during their escape from persecution in Egypt. Again, Edo is not the original people's name. It's Ubini. Again, Emo does mean children. We have that understanding. The Fon people don't speak Edo language. I think theirs is Yoruba. Yeah, so I actually believe people like I may make a video on this because all these people seems to have ties to the Yoruba. If anyone in here feels like I'm incorrect, please correct me. But the Ewe also have Yoruba ties as well, with them coming from Kintu or Ketu, Benin, which deals with the Yoruba history as well. Um, says that history is wrong. A lot of people in Nigeria like to claim our history, but not going to point them out. You can point them out. You can definitely point them out. We are the Igdo Mingdo people. I have to look into that. Yeah, I definitely have to look into that. But before I get off here, again, drop your final questions or comments. But I wanted to show a connection the brother made from in their language dealing with the Edo people, as they are called now. So let me see if I can find this video real quick, searching through YouTube, see if I can find the brother's video. 1 second, family, 1 second. Because in this video, he's breaking down the different tribes in Nigeria, or the different Yoruba tribes that connect to tribes of Israel within their language. So again, give me a second. I'm trying to look through my history, see if it's through there. If not, we just gonna leave it alone. If not, we're just gonna leave it alone, family. Okay, here it go. Well, this is his page. Now let me see if I can find a specific video where he's doing a breakdown. 1 second, 1 second. So it might be in this video. It might be in this video here. Again, give me 1 second. Sorry for the amount of time it's taking, but I really want to find this because it puts a cut to that whole Edomite doctrine. And what we have to realize as well, we were sold by our own specific tribes. All right. Or a lot of times we were sold by our own tribes, and we sold our own, or we sold the slaves that we had in the community. So if Igbos had slaves in their community or servants, they would have sold them off. And in some cases, they would have sold their own people. Same with the Khan. If they had slaves in their community, they would have been selling their slaves and some of their people. That's just the history. The African royals were selling, slaves to the Europeans. You feel me? But I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I will be making a video on that soon. Real interesting, real interesting. And it will, show it'll be a good lesson. I'll just say that it'll be a good lesson. Showing the genetic diversity in the African American people. or so-called African American people. But let me share my screen real quick. Make this connection with the Edo people, and I'm gonna wrap it up if there's no more question or comments. All right. So if you go to this brother page here, he brings out a lot of Yoruba history within their language and things of that sort. And at the around this mark, I believe it's around this mark. I'm not gonna play it, but for instance, here under Benjamin, he breaks down how this goes into the Ibini people. And even in this video, he says that they are Yoruba. The Ibini people are Yoruba people, and how today they are known as the Edo. All right. And even here, they brings out other Yoruba groups like the Iwo, and even down here, the Owa. He also talks about the Ile Ife group and other groups amongst the Yoruba and their connections to these different Israelite clans. Yeah, I watched it. I watched it on a streaming platform. I didn't find it that fun or that good, in my opinion. Other people might like it though. But even in that movie, they were selling slaves, their own people. So that's something we're gonna have to get over. West Africans sold their own people. You can't blame it on one specific group and try to call them Edomites. But I'm gonna give it about 2 more minutes. See if any final questions come in. If not, wrap it up. Work on some, working things like that. Says many Yorubas and Edo intermingled with each other because of mutual territories, but I digress, brother. Yeah, even if you look on a genetics level, they literally genetically are the same. They have the same um religious pantheon or religious system of worship, same Orisha or messengers, as we like to say. So again, they would spring from one stock of people and branch off into different diverse groups. Like for example, if we was to go to the kingdom of Ghana, originally those people were one people that sprung from one man named Dinga. After the kingdom was broken apart and ransacked, you have your different groups who spread it out from those same people who are related. And you started to get separate groups like the Saniki, like the Maliki, like the Mandinka, right? Like the Bambara, like the Dan. These are all different groups or tribes that go back to one tribe that's genetically related. So this could be the same for the Edo and even the Ewe, coming from a larger Yoruba group at I guess you could say a time period further back. Thank you. In southern Nigeria, we basically have the same DNA, just a little difference. Exactly. Yorubas, Ewes, Edos, Igbos, Ibabios, Efik, they all are E3A people. So they definitely are related. They definitely stem from certain migrations into this area known as Southeast Nigeria or Southern Nigeria or West Africa, period. There was a point in time where these tribes would have migrated into their respective territories and branched off, formed their distinct language and culture. So, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you all for tuning in. If you all would like, I will crop this video out to it specifically just showing the presentation if you all would like. So I will crop the presentation part out and post that separately. But again, thank you all for tuning in. Shabbat shalom, and I will see you next time.